Welcome to Meet the Candidates 2022, a voter education program brought to you by the Shakopee Chamber of Commerce. My name is Tim Zunker, and I'm the president of the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau. Our hope is that these candidate interviews and profiles will help you, the voter, understand your choices when it comes to the 2022 elections. We ask voters to arm themselves with the information necessary to make educated choices and to make casting your vote a priority. Please visit the Shakopee Chamber website at shakopee.org to find out more information about the upcoming election. Now I'd like to introduce Brad Tabke, who is running for Minnesota State Representative District 54A. Brad, thank you for joining us today, and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
Thank you so much, Tim. First, I just want to say thanks to you and the Chamber Board and Chamber members for putting the investment in making sure that these happen each and every election cycle. It's really important for Shakopee voters to know where people are at for these types of things. And so it's great to have this happening each cycle. So I'm proud to be back here again. But my name is Brad Tabke. As Tim said, I used to be the state representative in Shakopee, as well as was the mayor of Shakopee from 2011 to 2015. And myself and my campaign, we are working really hard to share with Shakopee voters our values and share with Shakopee voters why it's important that we are elected this year. We have knocked on lots and lots of doors and talked to lots and lots of voters here in Shakopee, and people are caring about their future. And we want to make sure that we are taking care of working families, that we are working hard for seniors in Shakopee and small businesses in Shakopee. And so those are the values that we bring to this campaign and why we want to be reelected, elected again is a better way to say that, into the Minnesota State House. And so I'm excited to talk about that today, as well as continuing the conversation for the next 2 months through the campaign.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Well, we'll get started with questions. If you could write, sign, and pass 3 laws today, what would they be and why?
Thanks. There are a lot of things that need to happen in Minnesota from where we're at, and what the voters are talking about today on the doors that we are having ability to impact are multiple things in Shakopee and the state of Minnesota. And so with that, we have a first thing that gets talked about a lot, and that is women's rights and abortion. And there is nothing, this isn't a bill that we can actually pass. This is just a philosophy and we need to have a majority in order to protect women's rights in Minnesota. So there are no bills and things that we can actually do about that, but it is one thing that needs to have maintain that majority in order to continue to protect women's rights in Minnesota. So the first bill that I would absolutely work on and pass is work around gun safety. It's another big thing that we hear about on the doors from everybody. It is gun safety and crime is something that it's a big problem in the state of Minnesota that we need to continue working on. And gun safety, while I was in the legislature, we passed 2 highly impactful laws that I would like to continue working on. And if we could get those passed today, we would save a lot of lives for background checks as well as red flag laws. And red flag laws are really important because it will save lives of veterans. Gun by suicide, death by suicide is really a major problem in a veterans community in Minnesota and across the country. And so we need to be doing that work. And so then the second thing that I would absolutely work on is legalization of marijuana. We have a bill that is ready to go that I helped write while I was in the legislature. And it's something that people of Minnesota absolutely want to see happen. And they want to see this moving forward. It's very, very clear that is there. We need to safely and responsibly regulate marijuana use and tax it so that we are able to pay for the programs needed to make sure that it works well for Minnesotans. And then the last one is very Shakopee specific that we have to do, and that is a bonding bill. And so we need a bonding bill. And during my time in the legislature also, I supported this. And we have a massive project along the riverfront in Minnesota in Shakopee. And so down by Hubert Park, where the river is moving around as rivers are wont to do, and it's encroaching on our infrastructure. And so it's a really major expenditure that has to happen in the city of Shakopee at some point, and the state should be helping out with that. And so those are the things I would really very much like to get done.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Next question is, coming out of the pandemic, businesses are being affected by issues including workforce shortages. What policies would you support in the next legislative session to help alleviate this issue?
This is something that is critical for Shakopee businesses, of course, but it's something that's been coming along for a long time. This this workforce shortage is not just only pandemic related. We were talking about this a lot while I was mayor, as the baby boomers are retiring. It's a major hit on our workforce availability in the state of Minnesota specifically because we had an aging workforce. So there are three main things that we need to continue working on to help with the workforce, and those are transportation, education, and housing. And transportation, I was the vice chair of the transportation committee, and we'll continue working on solving transportation issues and reducing congestion, as well as adding rapid transit into the mix for how we are able to get people back and forth from point A to point B within the metro and across the state of Minnesota. So transportation is one thing. We must fully fund education. We need to make sure that we are having an educated public coming out that has the education needed for the jobs that we need. There are so many technical jobs that we just can't fill in Shakopee right now because we have students who are coming out of high school and college that don't have the education levels that are needed. And then housing is the third one. We need to have more housing in Shakopee. It is, even with interest rates going up, housing is critical. We just need to have more housing at all levels of affordability throughout Shakopee, which will allow us to have more availability workforce in town.
Great. Thank you, Brad. According to the Office of Minnesota Budget and Management, the general fund budgetary balance for fiscal year 2022-2023 is projected to be over $7 billion. In fiscal year 2024-2025, it is projected to be over $12 billion. What policies would you propose or support in the next legislative session considering these budget surplus projections?
Tim, I've been extremely consistent all throughout my time as mayor and as state representative on we need to be focusing on the future of Shakopee and the future of Minnesota. And so we need to use this budget surplus now. It's a shame that it didn't get taken care of this past legislative session. We have a representative who doesn't want to work together with folks and doesn't want to help solve any problems. He just wants to say no on everything. And so he was not in part of the conversation at all on helping to get this work done. And so if I were in there, we would absolutely be focusing on the future. So I think there was a really great, grand compromise, basically, that was the framework was put together for that, for using of the surplus, using a third of it for a rainy day fund. So keeping that in there, a third of it for spending and investing on education, for childcare, for housing, and things that are really important to the future of Minnesota. And then, as well as we had the opportunity in Minnesota to pass the largest tax cut in Minnesota history, which would have completely eliminated Social Security tax, which would have done a lot of great things for working families and seniors and small businesses in Shakopee. And so I think that those things need to happen, and we need to focus on getting those things done. And we need to have representatives who actually want to work together and want to work for Shakopee, on behalf of Shakopee, for this investment that will be being made soon.
Great. Thank you, Brad. According to the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, there were roughly 395 violent crimes for every 100,000 residents in 2021 in the 7-county metro region, which is a 24% increase over 2020 levels. What are the best solutions to lower the crime rate, not only in the 7-county metro, but throughout Minnesota?
This is a great question, Tim. And we are really lucky in Shakopee to have just an extraordinary police force. We have community-based policing here in Shakopee. And during my time as mayor, we increased the number of officers that were out in our community every day. We added civilian positions in order to get more officers out in the street. And we invested heavily in officers. And then during my time in the legislature, we increased funding for public safety. We also I carried a bill that was for soft body armor that we passed and has grants for individual departments to purchase soft body armor for taking care of officers. And that's the kind of work that I really want to continue doing, is both investing in our public safety, but also we must have reform in our policing. There are major issues in Minneapolis specifically in policing, and we have to do the work. That's hard. It's going to be difficult work, but we have to continue that work in order to make our police forces work better for all residents. And so that's one thing that I look forward to continuing to work on if I get back in the legislature there. But there's a lot of where I had just had conversation, I think it was on Saturday, with a mother and father whose daughter was carjacked at gunpoint in Minneapolis. And this is something that affects our community every single day. And we need to work together to actually find solutions and just not have big slogans and ripping on other people and that kind of thing. We need to actually work together to find these right solutions for Minnesota and Shakopee.
Great. Thank you, Brad. What would your plan be to help with healthcare costs for businesses and families?
This is a huge issue. When I owned my landscape company, this was one of the biggest expenses that we had was healthcare. It was really a major expense for everybody. And so it's something the state absolutely has to continue to work on. I am not a public health expert by any stretch of the imagination. But what I do know is that there are a lot of incredible people who have focused on single payer, expanding Medicaid, whatever there are solutions that make the most sense for businesses. We need to make sure to be offering those solutions. And so we have to continue working together on healthcare in order to find these solutions. And like we just talked about, there's a massive surplus in the state of Minnesota that we know will continue, and we can use that to invest in healthcare to make sure that we're all doing better.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Do you support passage of sports betting in Minnesota? If so, what would be the best way to implement?
Yeah, the bill that was in process is something that I actually started and would have been most likely would have been carrying this past session. We started this while I was in the legislature, and we were having really great communication with all the active players. And the bill that came out was actually a really great bill. The one thing that I would have worked further on is making sure that Canterbury Park is involved at some level. I think that's a really important thing that has to happen for everybody. And so we'll, if I get reelected, I'll work together to help make that happen. But the sports betting bill that was passed in the House, it was not passed in the Senate, was a really good bill in a really good way. So I very much support sports betting and am proud of that work that got done. And we will just need to get it across the finish line.
Great. Thank you, Brad. That is our question. So if you'd like to give your closing statement and message to the voters.
Yeah, thanks again, Tim. This is, it's always great to talk with you. It's always great to talk with Shakopee voters. I appreciate every opportunity we have to talk about our values and talk about what we care about for our community. I have this philosophy that we've been working on all through my time as mayor and state representative is that we want Shakopee to be just this extraordinary place and continue to be this extraordinary place where kids grow up here, they go to college or they go and they have a job somewhere else. But then Shakopee is the one and only place where they can fathom coming back and raising a family, starting businesses, and being part of the community. This is where I want my kids to grow up, and where this is where I want our kids to have families. And it's really important to me that we continue to focus on those. So as mayor, we worked on downtown Shakopee. We worked on the community center. We worked on investing in parks and recreation and in events for our community to help make sure that this is the place that this is the place where people want to be. And I want to continue doing that work in the legislature, where we're investing in the really important things that we need as a community and not focusing on other issues that don't have an impact on Shakopee. So that's where I would like to go and would like to continue working for the residents of Shakopee. So I ask for your vote. If you want to learn more about us, you can go to tabkeformn.com, or you can find us on Facebook, and would just really appreciate any questions, any issues that people have. Pretty much everyone in town has my cell phone number, and you can absolutely get that on our website, but I'm always open to talk and having cordial conversations, even if we have to agree to disagree. That's part of democracy, and that's where we go. So thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Brad. And again, the views expressed in these interviews are those of the candidates, not those of the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau. The Chamber is sponsoring these events as a service to the community and has gone to great lengths to ensure the objectivity. The Chamber does not endorse any candidate, but seeks to provide you, the citizens and voters of Shakopee, with the information you need to make an informed choice. The Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau extends a sincere thank you to the candidates. We appreciate your time and your service to our community by running for office. You are performing an important service to us all. Again, thank you for joining us for this edition of Meet the Candidates 2022. Please join us September 29th at River Valley Church for our candidate forum. Please visit the Shakopee Chamber website at shakopee.org for more information. Thank you. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Tim.